This man is a genius, so I'm absolutely honoured to be in his company. I've known him from years ago. He shames me because I have some issue with recognising people, which I'm sure he'll analyse now. But I always know their name and know how wonderful they are. But Dr Colman Noctor, psychotherapist, pretty valuable in Ireland. Like, he's kind of our go-to man, columnist, broadcaster. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me, Rebecca. It's a pleasure to be here.
Delighted to have you. I didn't know if you'd say yes or not.
Oh, yeah. Of course I would.
I'm delighted.
It's fantastic.
A mine of information. I don't know whether you would agree or disagree with me about overkill, about what we know now compared to what we knew back in the day. I mean, I'm a mum to a 6 and a 3-year-old, so I feel like I'm pretty new to the game and struggle and sometimes thrive. Do you feel like we have more information and that's an absolute blessing, or that it's actually kind of curtailing our natural instinct?
Yeah, big question, but it deserves a proper answer. I think... As in most cases, I think overcorrection is an issue. I think we went through a time where we didn't talk about anything, and there was a real cost to that. And we weren't vigilant, and we weren't hearing, and people didn't have a voice, and we saw the problems of all of that.
What would you say? You mean the problems, the repression, the abuse,
the
neglect?
I mean, again, just to talk about even something like children's safety, in terms of... And I have a big issue around, that children don't have a level of independence or autonomy that we would have had growing up,
100%.
Heading off on your bike and all that sort of stuff. And why is that? We were the ones who were the kind of latchkey kids who thrived on it, yet we don't give that freedom to our own children.
Wow, I love that.
And we grew up, if you go back to the 90s, we had all the clerical abuse scandals. We had Philip Kearns, we had Madeleine McCann, we had all of that sort of stuff. So our fears became huge. And even though the stats around child abduction and crime are nowhere, they haven't increased in that way.
So it's media based.
It's our perception of safety, I suppose, that has made things different. So going with the clerical scandals and all that, so children were seen, never heard, they didn't have a voice, people parented in the dark, they didn't really know what they were doing. I don't think my mother never opened a parenting book in her life, and I think she did a fine job.
Yes.
But the idea of now we are so hyper-vigilant to absolutely everything that there's almost, because there's a tyranny of choice and a tyranny of options, that there's no excuse to not get it right anymore.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So
why aren't you getting it right? Why are you shit? Because you should be reading the seeing the memes, reading the book. Like, there's a lot of pressure.
Well, you've got the biggest library in the world in your pocket. How can you not know this, or how can you not do
Everybody
this?
knew that, yes.
Yeah. And so the idea that I suppose that overcorrection is that there's so much coming at us about how to do something that I would say there's no one way to parent, because there's no one child. So you have to, the skill of parenting is the flexibility of being able to adjust and adapt to the needs of that child sitting in front of you, rather than I have the book and I do it the way the book says, and that will work with all my children. And something like temperament is so important in a child, that you can't make a meek child fiery, and you can't make a fiery child meek. You got to work.
Like a meek human, like, you're correct. You can't manipulate them to being what you kind of think they would be easier for you to parent.
Yeah,
be around.
And there's a great saying, that we are shepherds of our children, not engineers. You can't engineer a child, but there's a belief that if we have all the information, we should be able to. Your gardener, you guide it. You're not a carpenter. You don't make it. And so
I love you're guiding them. Like, we're meant to be coaching, not necessarily their buddy, right?
Yeah, and we see our children as an extension of ourselves, which comes with a great level of responsibility. You better not let me down. Do you know what I mean? From that point of view, because you are an extension of myself. And take things like extracurricular activities or our involvement in our children's lives. They're really good things that we are more involving, more choice. But the downside of that is we have to have these silent sidelines, because we've parents encroaching on an under 6's GAA game, and there's shouting and roaring, and so the idea that I always use the example of...
Colman, didn't that always happen though? Are we being a bit PC? Like,
absolutely not.
Weren't people... No,
not anywhere near to
really?
that. I played GAA
Okay.
all my life. I think my father went to 3 matches, probably.
I don't think anyone ever watched
dropped me to
sport.
training.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So there wasn't that level of involvement. Now, there might have been coaches...
Well, there was the rugby schools who were all the dads were involved, and there was that pressure on those schools, I think, certain.
There was, but I think where the difference is now is we see childhood as an apprenticeship for adulthood. right? So everything has to have an investment. I'm going to send you to the Gael School so you get 600 points in your leaving cert. I'm going to send you to learn piano because you get points in your leaving for that. I'm going to send you to swimming because I don't want you to drown. Or
Why is that wrong? Tell me about that.
Well, because your child becomes a project, rather, and you live yourself vicariously through the successes of your child. So from the point of view of the pressure, and like if you were to say to me, why do we have such an issue? And we do have a huge issue with children's mental health. That's not a kind of an overblown issue. Children are creaking under the pressure. And the pressure is expectation. And it's expectation from academics, from life, from sport, from performance. Like take, for example, grinds, right? So I went in maths grinds for my leaving cert because I was about to fail pass maths. And my mother said, you have to go get this. So I sat at a guy's table in Fairhouse and he tried to teach me how to do maths. But look at the grinds the children are going to now. They're going to get the H1 to make sure that they get these outcomes.
7, 8-year-olds are getting extra help already.
Yeah, and that's not children electing to go to grinds, that's us as parents sending them there.
Yeah, you're right. It's not a 17-year-old going, I kind of need to get into university because I do want to study, so I don't want to fail maths, so I need assistance. You have money to pay for that. You're correct. It's not that maybe you responsible for your future. You're talking about little kids being pushed into every arena. That's not.
And look, it's there's a natural instinct in that. If your child shows a skill at swinging a golf club, you can't help but think maybe he'll be the next Rory McIlroy. So I'm going to get him clubs and I'm going to send him to the thing. I'm going to do that all the and you don't want to not give your children these opportunities, but the expectation and the pressure that children are carrying because of that parental expectation.
Yeah, because Rory McIlroy spoke about how he was an only child. He actually just recently, with his incredible win, about how he was really invested in, right? So they saw that he had potential or talent, which is interesting, and they saw that he obviously had an interest. And because it was one of them, it was just him, they pushed, I presume, they paid, they invested, they gave him that space. And great that he became Royal McIlroy, okay? So that's not always the case, that you're going to be the world Irish dancing champ or you're going to be a cricket player. So thank goodness that paid dividends. And has it not maybe been great for him mentally? Has he made bad decisions? No one is perfect, right? And he would admit he's a flawed man, but wow, great success. So people maybe look at these social media clips and these interviews and these videos and they go, fuck, see, like his parents did that and we should be doing more of that. And I think there is this arena, and there's so much more available for us to consume about the great success parenting stories, but we forget that actually it can be very damaging. So I don't know whether you...
Yeah, and a huge part of it is we were never built to have that level of information about other people's parenting strategies. Like that was it's never...
We didn't know.
We're not cognitively or socially built to be able to keep up with everybody in the WhatsApp group's ability to parent and how... Yeah. And you like we talk about kids and their screens and the idea of the comparative culture and the social comparisons and everything else. Parents are in that boat as well. You know, you're looking at, oh my gosh, Rebecca Horan's kid is 7 and he's out there winning a black belt in taekwondo, and my kid still uses Velcro shoes. And why am I not doing this right? Yeah. And I've been that dad where I'm standing at this pitch and I see this kid playing really well, and I'm going, I bet you his dad is out with him every night doing that, and I'm not doing that with my boy.
Oh my God, the shame, the fucking shame.
And that's overload of information. That's too much available to us to use and utilize, and it feeds into all the things you talk about parental guilt and parental competition and all that, and that pressure seeps down to children, because if I'm feeling the pressure that I need you to do this for me so that we don't look bad, or that we...
It's the rotten fish head, it's just the whole body then. You're correct, it's like anything rotten to the core.
And so you get back to that original question, are we over-informed? For sure, we are. Like there's and the information feeds our expectations. Like a very simple formula for happiness: expectation minus reality equals happiness. You know, and the gap between your expectation and your reality, that's the potential you have to feel disgruntlement, anxiety, you can't do anything.
Go on, say it again.
Expectation minus reality equals happiness, right? So if your expectations are up here and your reality is there, then that's going to level that. Now, we can't do anything about reality. We can only adjust expectation. So you drop the expectation down.
So we just realised life is really boring, tedious shit most of the time, and there's the odd peak.
Well, Freud said, you know, the most you can hope for is the misery of everyday life. And it's actually...
This sounds like my father. This is it.
But your father might have had a point.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because the idea of, like, failure, disappointment, betrayal, these are all parts of the lived experience that we almost have to anticipate. And it's not... And I think there's some there's a very unhelpful narrative around mentally healthy people are happy all the time. And that's a very...
I think like you're correct. And like I would study all this and look at all you brilliant experts and go, but the happiness thing is kind of a horseshit thing. The contentment though is important, because if you're really, really deeply darkly unhappy and able to get out of bed, we know that you're suffering, and we know you're not able to help others around you or raise your kids or go to work, right? So we are looking to be slightly content in our day to day, and hopefully resolving things that are really not making us happy. No?
Yeah, we are. And I think contentment is the kind of plus minus equals contentment level. So I don't like, there's so many things that, well, my job isn't exactly where I want it to be, but my family life is really good and my health is really good. So overall, I'm good. So almost it's a kind of an enduring experience that almost, if you think about seasons, like you judge a season by over a period of time, spring is mostly like that. But you'll have rain showers in spring, and you'll have, so weather is different to seasons. Yes. So, so contentment I would see as a kind of season, but sometimes we judge it all on weather. I'm feeling really bad today, so I mustn't be mentally healthy. Do you know what I mean? So the message around being happy all the time means that we almost want our children to never experience adversity, because so if I avoid them ever having to experience any of these things, they will be mentally healthy, which is not necessarily true. It's absolutely untrue. Your child's mental health will be judged by how they respond to adversity when it happens. That's the measurement of it. Let's go back to, sorry about McElroy, but he was up and he was down, he was in and he was out, and everyone was talking about his resilience to the disappointment. He didn't have it all his own way, and it was so. When we think about what I want my child to be, to have resilience and to have all of these things, we almost have to see them experience frustration, experience disappointment.
Yeah, but sorry, he's 30 something and he's learned, like he spoke actually really articulately about now he's working with the psychotherapist and has, let's face it, every resource he would need to get fit, to play well, to have speaking about the failures and how he used to take them to heart. And you can see he's an emotional and a sensitive man. You can tell he wears everything there. He pukes everything. He talks about everything. But that he's only now, and the game is coming right, because let's face it, within a year of him winning that, he had also had issues in his marriage, announced a divorce, gotten back with his wife. So that all happened in the same year that he had this mighty. So everything with him has always been a bit, right? And yet he now admits he had to get someone to help him with that. So we don't necessarily know, is he that resilient?
What we kind of do from the proof of the pudding in terms of being able to come back from something.
But right? That is because he got expert help? No.
Yeah, and again, he's a multimillionaire, 31-year-old person. But on a much smaller level, if you want a 9-year-old to get over a friendship issue, it's about almost sitting with them through the disappointment and saying, this is really tough, but you'll get through this, and we've got this.
Instead of how do we fix this?
Instead of, I'm going to, you don't have to experience that adversity because I'm going to get in. And
so hard though, Colman. You love these little fuckers, do you know?
But again, what we need to do in those experiences, like, you have to think about emotional health as fitness, right? And if you want to get fit, you have to go through some degree of, like, if you want to run 5K, you got to go and walk it and then be out of breath, and you build it up over time. If you want to go and lift weights, you don't lift the heaviest weight, you start light, and you almost have to go through that level of discomfort.
Yes.
And so I love this, my favorite expression when it comes to parenting is surmountable stress. Right, so you just want to provide surmountable stress.
Not insurmountable.
You want your child to be socially conscious, but you don't want them lying awake at 4 a.m. worrying about single-use plastics, right? Because that's too much, So how do you get that balance right?
Yeah.
So it's about
2025.
It's about surmountable stress
or abuse or neglect. Like, it's not that we want them to be so beaten down that they're resilient. We want them to have enough coping mechanisms.
And that's another myth. This idea that the tougher your life is, the more resilient you become.
Yes,
that is rubbish.
It is not.
Like, I have sat in front of a lot of people who had really tough lives and they are not resilient as a result of it. The idea that you have, like, your adversity doesn't determine resilience. Your ability to respond to adversity is a measure of your resilience.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Do you know what I mean? Like,
do you not think the more, right, this is a mad one, and this is a real adult thing, not just a kid thing. Do you not think the more shit things happen to you, and you spoke there about, like, loads of people have been through hell and they're not resilient. Do you feel the weathered down thing, though? Say you have a very bad illness, or you've been through pregnancy loss or a divorce, do you not think the more it happens, though, you are better able to cope? Or not at all? No,
I think you build an immunity, which isn't always helpful. Do you know what I mean? From the point of view of,
so there's a kind of like
I can't go there again. Do you know what I mean? And so I'm not going to process it, and I'm not going to think about it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But the idea of that, like for me, a mental health problem is very rarely that one incident. 1% of cases come to me and say, on the 8th of February 2018, this happened and this is why. It's always a series of things happening in a short period of time. My mom died, then I had this, then I had that. And that. So it's the fifth hit that knocks me.
That's very
Do you know
interesting.
what I mean?
Okay.
So much of what I think in terms of resilience and coping is pacing of trauma. If you get a small t trauma and a few of those, and they're spaced out apart, that you've kind of an ability to refuel and go again. And many of us will get through much of our adversity through the support of our friends and our parents and our families and all those things. But if those hits come really quickly, really heavily in a really short space, it's like a concussion. Yes. It's almost it's not the first hit, but it's the rebound and those 3 hits within that time that does the damage. And most people who come for mental health problems will say, well, this happened, but then I had this. And then we go, we'll come back, let's go back 6 months before that. And you'll find all in the lead up, there was all that sort of stuff. And in a very simple way, because there's so many variables that are creating the way in which I feel today, there's very much a need for many variables in the response to it. It's never just one thing. I'm going to go to therapy and
quit your job and you're going to be great.
Yeah, and that's a lovely fantasy, but it's never a reality. There's all of these things have a psychological impact, they have a social impact, and they have a biological impact. So whether I'm sleeping, my exercise, my diet, they're really important. How I think about the world, what I see through the world, the lens through which I see the world, and my support strategies, my relationships, my family, my children, all of those things will be impacted by the event, and they are also the keys to the solution of the event. So, do you know what I mean? Like, a relationship is the one thing that can cause us devastation. But relationships are the things that can bring us back from devastation. Do you know what I mean? So
guys,
does that make sense?
Yeah. The relationships, like, let's face it, will go job, but job is relationships.
Oh, it is.
It's how we perceive how
you don't
people
leave
treat.
Bad
It's not
work,
about
we
your
leave bad
work,
people.
And illness is usually to do with who is there to pick you up off the ground. And a marriage or dating even, or your children, these are all relationships, the hardest things. So you're so right. Like, yes, they're the things that break you, but they're the things that make you, kind of.
And Esther Perel says the quality of our life are a direct reflection of the quality of our relationships.
She's a devil. I'm mad for her, right? Mad for her in an analysing romantic. And, like, I'd be a real dopamine hit girl. Like, I've just obviously got this need for, and it was intrinsically linked to who I am or how I was brought up, but just need for validation and love. And I love loving, and that, like, everything needs to be a lot of, and not everyone lives their life like that. People are balanced and chill, and, like, Esther Perel talks about the connections. She's brilliant. If you don't follow her. She's great. But even more so, we're seeing now in anything to do with psychiatry and psychology that it's not just get fit, never get sick, don't be on social media. It's very much like, how the fuck are you getting on with your partner, who you live with? How's your flatmate affecting your day to day? Do you get on your mum? It's much more now, isn't it, about it's less obsessive about go for 10k.
Yeah, and my major concern, and I think the way in which we kind of come out of this sort of stuff, is that I think we have become, I've spoken about this before, such an individualist society. Like, we go back to the importance of the village and the tribe and all of those things, and those are relationships. And in a very short space of time, we have gone very much into the I rather than the we.
Why? We are very proud. We don't want to ask for help. We're above it, or we're scared of, like, why have we done that?
I blame, like, it's easy to say social media and all that sort of stuff. And yes, that is a component of it. I would say the psychological societies like ourselves have had issues with that. Through the 80s, we were always about be selfish and have your boundaries and, put yourself first and all that sort of stuff. And like the overcorrection, we took that a bit too far.
Like, do it for, like, live your own life, be brave. Yeah, you're
right.
But
technology is incredibly individualist. From the point of view, it's iPhone, selfie. It's not we.
Yes.
And like, I even watch, like, my kids playing, and like, say for example, when we used to play before, if you were playing the Atari or the PlayStation, you were sitting on air and I was sitting here with 2 joysticks. If my son's friends want to play, they have to go home to their own console to play the game. So they all leave to play together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're
and
right.
So the idea of, and like, this is the first generation of children who didn't grow up on the green, on the road, or on the street.
Now, I'm a big advocate for that, because I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I had no neighbours, and it was what I was always jealous about, the kids who were playing together and playing. And I mean, it sounds very strange because it's not glamorous. It could be just any cul-de-sac or any housing estate, but we were just in the middle of nowhere. And I remember going to my cousin's house and going, you play with people on the road, and just thinking, what the? It blew my mind that they randomly go out and just have little relationships. And we were kind of isolated. And so now I'm in a situation where there is a green, it's gas with a little hill, a mound, and they go out there and that is their saving grace. And I'm like, fucking stay there for 7 hours for all I care. I love that. And there is still a bit of that going on, but there's also still a lot of phones and...
Yeah, and again, I think maybe it happens in pockets, but I think there's a lot of children who don't have that. A lot
less of it?
Yeah.
Is there?
Oh, for
in
sure.
The States and
for sure.
And what is that? Worry they're going to be taken? Worry they'll die? Worry?
Safety issues, but also kind of just children not having autonomy. I think like a lot of teenage boys really don't know how to hang out together, if that makes any sense. Anymore.
Whereas we used to just be weird together.
What would I say? What do I do? And loads of children that I see don't ever meet their friends outside of school. So they don't meet up at the weekends. They don't do these things. Like they meet, and again, it comes back to maybe the involvement of adults in children's lives. Most of our children, like I would say to parents, and they say, oh, they've a grand social life. They're playing GAA on Tuesday, soccer on Wednesday. And I coach a soccer team. That's not a social opportunity, right?
No, it's not. I mean, they're in the thick of it. It's
they
not
have
the crap.
5 minutes at the start, and they grab each other in headlocks and everything else. And then it's shush, 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 listen to the drills. And then they have 5 minutes before they go home. So that's not shooting the breeze and just hanging out and do that sort of stuff. And I don't know, and I think there's a huge social atrophy to children who don't have that experience. Like I grew up in rural area as well, but the 65 bus from Templeogue to Blessington
I was on that bus.
I was on
that bus.
The laboratory of life.
Blessington, yes.
So that's where I learned everything.
The chemical laboratory of... I used to always be like, oh, I wash my hair with Pantene, it smells so nice, and then someone would smoke the whole way in from Tala to the school, and I'd be like, now my hair smells of cigarette. Like, it's the funniest bus route.
And that's where I lived. Like, I grew up in Blessington. So
Same.
yeah, so that was, and we used to, obviously the same envy for the Dublin people who had the green and all that sort of, but that bus, I learned so much, but it was given to me by my peers who were at a similar level. The information wasn't trustworthy or reliable, but it was fed to me in a way, whereas children who don't have that turn to the online world for their social laboratory. It's a wild west of stuff, you know, all that.
Whereas you'd be like, this is how you kiss and then you have sex. Like, you'd just be told random shit, and it kind of was funny and weird and not okay. Or you'd find a book in a friend's house about sex, or a book about anything, and kind of so funny.
But what a brilliant paced way to learn. I learned from someone who's...
Or kissing, watching Beverly Hills, and you're like, that's... But isn't that kind of sweet too? I mean, we talk about all the badness of those days. Sorry, how gorgeous was that? Everyone snogged like a washing machine. No one was good at anything.
That's how it was supposed to happen.
There wasn't this porn where everyone looked like... We all looked like shit. If there was pictures, you know what I mean?
No, but that's the... Remember I said, like, pacing is so important. Like,
we don't have to peek at everything, you know.
It's just fed to you at a level that you know by people who think they know slightly more than you.
Yes.
But you're learning it at a level that you can manage.
Yeah.
And you're not being overexposed to content that and what it does is
That's interesting.
It's not a shortcut to the end. It's a process through. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like, I don't know, if you've seen hardcore pornography before you've had your first kiss,
you can never. It's like we were talking about unseen things. You can't unsee that. It's an extreme version of a sexual relationship.
So when you take out the social atrophy of that learning process and migrate it into Google or online or AI or ChatGPT to give you all the answers, you miss the process. So when you're doing a maths problem and someone says that's the answer, yeah, you have the answer, but you don't know how you got there.
Where's your skill set to actually work it?
And I just think the friendships and the relationships are so key to that development of your emotional savviness, how to read a room, how to say things, how to not say things, all that sort of stuff. And I really, really worry that we have almost dissected that out of children's lives. Every era has its downsides, of course it does. But the big comparison, say for example, and I use this as an example of my childhood versus my children's childhood. When I was growing up in our house, people would randomly arrive to visit.
Loved it.
Like, just the headlights of the car would go, oh, look, it's so-and-so.
Do we have any food?
You know, get out the nice china and wear those biscuits that nobody else could know where they were kept.
5 years old.
But you were exposed to all these characters coming to your house, and you sat there and listened and you learned.
Yes.
My children, we don't get visitors. And if we do, we get 2 weeks
booked.
warning, and it's text, and it's, you know. And so there's no informality template that we're teaching children about how to engage with somebody without it being planned, you know, and we've become very worried about this idea of, I don't know what your feelings on this might be, that self-care is isolation. So just go in your duvet and watch Netflix for 10 hours and that's self-care.
Sorry, self-care to me would be deeply depressing if I did it, because I'm not into spas, lying in my bed, lying in the bath, finding myself massaging my bum. Like, none of that appeals to me. I do honestly think there was something really interesting. Maybe you were speaking about, someone was speaking about it. Self-care is connection. Like, my best days mentally are when I'm with the people that bring me so much joy. As in, I don't necessarily have to get anything learned or be validated, but I just laugh my ass off, or I feel safe. I think the safety thing is huge for me, just feeling accepted, safe, loved. I don't often feel that way with family. You don't often feel that way, but with the people, right, that you connect with, that for me is self-care. So you're correct. Sitting, having a bottle of wine on my own, watching Netflix, or getting my disgusting toenails, like that to me is bizarre. And you're correct, it's lonely, isolating,
and I think it's glamorized a little bit. Like, remember,
just sit on your own in the bath for 3 hours, ignore your kids and your husband. Well, actually, if you're in a bad place, not so great.
No, and again, there's like, remember the fear of missing out, FOMO. Like, there's this JOMO, which is the joy of missing out.
Horseshit.
You know, and that's so not good advice. Do you know what I mean? From the point of view,
say no, boundary yourself. Don't go to anything. Well, actually, go to some stuff.
Yeah, healing happens through connection. Like, I've worked in we mentioned that I worked in inpatient units, and young people, after they come through something like that, you'd say, what was the part of the treatment that really made a difference? And you're thinking, was it the medication? Was it the was it appointments with Colman? Was it the groups? Was it this? And they say, it's the other young people. You know, just those relationships that made me feel not alone, or they helped me, or they were there. And it's just that process. And there's something really important about us being together and spending and getting through things
animals,
together.
Though. I come into my office and we're like some dysfunctional family. I mean, you just puke out your information about your morning. I mean, to you, not a veritable stranger, but I don't know. I'm just like, this is what happened. Like, we do that, and that gives us that level of like, right? We get to blow off some steam and be seen effectively. And I think you're correct. Like, if we don't have that, and there is a lot of like saying no, boundary yourself, step away, close the door, lock the door. I mean, random people used to arrive at our house, relations or whatever, and my dad would have the fear of God. He was so antisocial, and he'd be so cross. But my God, the crack that would be had. Now, I'm a bit of an open door policy gal, but I'm not saying everyone is like that. But I'd be like, you don't need to let us know, just come in. And not everyone loves that vibe, but I'd be like, get the hell in here. But I feed and need people. I don't know if everyone does, or am I wrong? Do people?
I mean, again, even introverts want social connection. They just want it in a different way. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like, but for me, like, we have spent evolutionary wise on this planet, if you looked at a time clock as to a represented minute of time, this moment in time is a second. Do you know what I mean? All the rest of the time we were tribes. And it was so important that we didn't separate from the tribe, and you didn't break off from the tribe. And if you did, you died. Do you know what I mean? So it was about this really important collective community of sticking together. And when you see communities go through traumas or whatever the case may be, like a funeral or something, you see this bonding of community and this everyone coming together to kind of get that family or those people through it. And I just think we have gone so far in the kind of way of, I just have to look after myself, and so the answer to my thing is a bath and, you know, a walk, and while all those things are helpful, there's so much more can be gained by, like, think about an experience that you have on your own versus together. Like, so say, for example, I use the example, let's say you're in a cafe later on today and you see Brad Pitt, and you go, oh, I saw Brad Pitt, right? Let's say the two of us were in that cafe and we saw Brad Pitt. We will tell that story for the next 20 years. Do you remember? And so the major...
And the crack that'll be had out of that.
And we will drag the arse out of that story, and we will tell it because we shared the experience. Whereas there was a study...
Me on my own, I'll just inflate it or I'll tell someone, but it's never the same.
It's never the same.
Oh my God. And I miss, sometimes if I do the self-care thing and something happens or a funny thing happens or I've fallen over and everyone... I always want to share that. And I feel kind of like, oh, you know... But
we're innately social beings, you know, from that point of view. And I get, obviously, there's certain people who really don't like that, and I get that. But, say, for example, there was a study done years ago where they... Actually, not years ago, recently, where they asked these people to spend 1 hour a day doing something to make yourself happy. And I think it was Taiwan, Japan, Russia, and US across the studies. And it worked in Taiwan, Japan, and... Russia, and it didn't work in the US, and they worked out why it was the people in the US did something by themselves. So they went for a massage. Or
So
went
they
for this
chose something that would make them happy by being on their, okay, great, yeah.
But the others did it with other people.
Wow.
And so, like, if you're looking at like mental health advice and, you know, what's the one thing that I can guarantee will improve my mental health? And you might say, is it mindfulness? Is it walking? It's a good night's sleep. The two things are to volunteer and join a choir, right? And those two things, research supported, are inevitably, and the reason is they have a shared meaning and purpose, that you come together and you share an experience, and an act of service to somebody else. So giving of yourself to somebody else makes you feel good. Like, it isn't a selfless act, but someone saying thank you for that means a hell of a lot more than aren't you great.
Oh, we love being needed.
Just, I mean,
oh my God, we love it.
but it's,
and that's why parenting is hard. And sorry to, you know, cut across you, but because we just don't feel thanked enough by them, because they don't have the ability. They don't have to thank us for anything. We brought them into this world, but sometimes it is thankless.
But I think if you do something for your child, like for example, a present or something that they really enjoy, you get something out of that. There's 100%. That kind of I nailed that there, or you know,
great day out with her, and she really got some,
and so, but that process is really important for our own sense of well-being. Is that those little micro gestures, just thank you, cheers. I found the last few years really hard, actually, you know, in terms of the COVID stuff and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know, like, I was one of those people who's like, oh, wait till the pubs are open, I'll be out there, and I might have been out 10 times since COVID. Like, I kind of got very used to that. But
so you have to also work on that.
Like, and I have to kind of push myself to make plans to do things. But I find we live in a world where asking someone, do you want to do something, you're not sure whether they'll want to do it or not. Like, whereas that should be the most...
No, I'm an asshole though. Like, someone will go, well, like, do you know what, I'll let you know. And I'm like, no, we should do it because we've been saying we'll do a coffee for a month, Kate, or something. And they'll go, yeah, well, and I go, Wednesday? I'm a dick. And because I know that if they really don't want to do it and they don't like me, they will just say no. But it's the kind of like, I don't know, actually, you're right, I do have an hour. I'm like, you do have an hour.
But we are the loneliest generation that has existed from the point of view of, and I would say, like, in my therapy room, I would say, like, the last 10 years, anxiety has been the major thing that you see, hands down. More recently, and in the last 4 or 5 years, loneliness.
What are we anxious about?
We're anxious about, again, all those things about the expectation and the pressure and the comparison, and I'm not doing enough, and how, and not having any sense of enough. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, what is enough?
Like, what is enough?
Do you know?
What is enough?
Well, there's like...
Just tell me.
Well, you see,
like, what is
it's subjective to each person, but I don't know whether there is any anymore. Like, so say, for example, like, and again, we go back to the social comparison thing. Like, say, for example, if you're sitting at home and you're fairly content in your life and you're looking around, and then I send you a picture of my new mantelpiece that I got done, and you look at that and go, it's lovely. And then you look at your mantelpiece and go, it's a bit shoddy, is it? And then you're kind of going, should we get a new mantelpiece? You know, so you've invited that unhappiness into your life. Does that make sense? Because up until that point, you were fairly content with it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the idea that we are constantly being told more, next, you know, all of these sorts of things, that there's, how much is enough?
But other humans are fucking us up. Like, you invited that unhappiness into my life because you shared your mantelpiece. Why are you showing it off, Colm? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but because we live in a performative society, like, and that's different. Up until now, we were largely consumers of media, whereas now we're all producers of media, and that's a game changer. Because when we were comparing ourselves to, like, I don't know, celebrities, we could always say, well, we'd never achieve that. But if you're comparing yourself to Marion down the road, it's much more, it hurts much more if she's doing things that you're not doing.
I mean, everyone's marriage can be perceived to be fab by a Facebook picture or Instagram, you know, wherever. We really don't know. And I guess all that matters is, are we surviving each day?
Yeah, but I did my PhD into looking at the psychodynamics of online sharing. Like, I remember when someone said to me, what's the burning question? I said, I want to know why someone takes a picture of a blueberry muffin and shares it with 700 people. Like, what is that about? And
I don't know, because I mean, I would do...
No, but the idea is that it's about the culture that we're in.
Is it boredom? Is it just what you tend to do if you're on any of these awful things? Is it was a nice blueberry muffin? Is it simplistic? Is it narcissism? I mean, isn't it everything?
It's everything. That's the thing that was the findings, was it had very different reasons for different people.
Yeah.
But in many ways, the people who were sharing weren't announcing themselves, and this is young people, so 18 to 25, they were trying to find themselves. They wanted to know what people thought of it in order to, because they were second guessing their own decision. Does that make sense? And it was interesting. Like, I think it's different for people who have to do it as a job. Do you know what I mean? Or you need to get that
Feel
profile
the
out, you know, and
Feel
all
it,
that.
yeah.
But I think there's like the idea of us having that capacity to perform puts pressure on you. Any performance is pressure. Do you know what I mean? Because, and here's an interesting one, right?
I often find, because I do this, and I'm not an influencer or a profile, but I do bits and pieces in the media, and I have no Facebook page or Twitter anymore because I just couldn't cope. Actually, I would find that. But I have an Instagram that I kind of feed and put shite up, and sometimes it's very image driven, sometimes it's very much about my work, or sometimes it's, and not so much my kids' faces or any of that stuff now, maybe on my quickie story. So I kind of find what I do, right? And then LinkedIn is about work. But I feel sometimes so exhausted if there's been a week that a lot has been going on that I feel everyone cares about. No one cares, right? No one actually cares about anyone else. But a lot that I've had to really box tick about guests. I felt really fucking drained by Friday. I'm like, I've A, nothing else to say. B, nothing. I actually don't feel that excited by anything. So that is, social media is in itself so draining.
But if you take the account that you can adjust into that mode now, but you've had a set of life skills that were developed before that.
100%.
Right?
And I also came on social media, I'm 41 at 35, 36. So if I'm addicted to it, hey ho, I'm old. And I'm middle-aged and I can make choices to put it away, and at night it's outside the room. So I can control what I can control and be an Egypt if I want to. But correct, I was 35, not...
The iPhone baby has only just turned 15, right? So from the point of view of, that's if this is the fabric of your whole experience, so since you were 8, you were doing that sort of stuff and never had the 65 bus, never had the green, never had the other side of things. Like, this is your world. So that idea of, and you can kind of say, I know why I do it, and I know that I do it, and you know, so
I can say to you, yeah,
we have that. But and here's the thing: childhood is about discovery mode. It's all about, look at that, let me see this. Da, da, da. When we in social media we go into defensive mode, will anyone be upset by this? You know, and we all do it. Like, before you say anything, you say, no, I like apples, but just before I say it, I also like oranges, and this is nothing about bananas.
But yeah, okay.
But, you know, there's a kind of we're very careful about
being accepted.
And like, I work in a third level university, and I can tell you that the in classroom debates are very quiet because people don't want to say the wrong thing, or, you know, there's that sort of high, and that's defensive mode. So when you're a child and you're coming into the world, you want to be in discovery mode, trying everything. You don't want a child going into the world in defensive mode. No. You know, it inhibits everything about their learning and their experiences. And again,
it's like the age-old be good, be nice, be quiet, be good, be nice. And a lot to girls and boys too. I'm not saying boys didn't stuff, but even with my girls now, I have to stop myself going, be nice and be. I'm like, well, just be loud if you want, but also just don't be rude. Like,
and again, trying to do that in front of a mob of people who all have an opinion on it. Like, I remember a young person saying, you know, it's like trying to sculpt an image of yourself with 600 people shouting what they think you should do next. You know, so that.
Oh my God, you blow my mind about social media as well, because I guess I am living in a happy bubble of my own shite, and so I've just kind of do what I do, right? And I don't take it all that seriously, and then I also just am on it. And then I'm around people within my home, thankfully, who are not interested in social media. I think that's healthy too. And I also know what it is, but it's so interesting when you're like, there's all these people who'll have an opinion. Like, it's so interesting. You're correct, because there'll be some who go, that's great for her. Some who go, it's just fucking painful. Or some who go, I totally disagree with that. Or she looks like shy. You're correct. And it's how much of that we're thinking and analysing.
And like, a lot is said about social media and children and internet and all that sort of stuff.
And you're doing incredible work in this space. I think it's really important to call this out. You're literally killing it, because it's a minefield.
But I have an interesting take on it that, you know, like the cyberbullying, the grooming, the pornography, they're all big issues. But if you were to make a decision based on, should a child have access to the online world, based on the chances of that happening, it's probably fairly small, right? That's not the issue that we should be thinking about when it comes down to, what you should be thinking about is, what's it like to be an 11-year-old who has to answer 70 Snapchat messages before they have their Cocoa Pops in the morning? That's nuts. That's the issue, though.
And what do they used to do? Nothing. Piss and moan at their mom, like, get their shit together for school. Like,
but can imagine, imagine the pressure.
It's like running a freaking corporation.
But that's
at 11.
But if you have 37 streaks that you have to keep going, that you can't drop the streak. So you're trying to send a picture of the wall to this one and send a picture of that.
I can't handle this because I find it stressy when I'm in mode of like booking guests or putting up shite or editing something, or I find WhatsApp voice memos are great because you think you're having some deep meeting. I can't imagine. I remember being 11 in first year. I was very young in first year and I was blown away by being in this Dublin school with these mature. I can't imagine adding that layer. And I cannot imagine adding, because I know anything awful I did thankfully wasn't recorded, or it was just. And I do remember getting a phone like a Nokia for the 65 bus reasons, to be like on the button. It was a text. And I do remember my mother putting credit in that. I mean, lolfest. And also checking your texts. Because I remember there was a boy I was texting. Oh, did you put? Oh, no, she would put credit in. Yeah. But she would check if I was texting a boy in my class, and she would never be mean. She would never analyze it. She'd just go, "You're texting me," and I go, "Yeah, okay, lovely text." Like, but it was cringe because she'd be checking them. And then if you took as you got older in 15, as you took your phone up to your bedroom, she'd be like, "Well, it's our phone, so it'll be left down in the kitchen." I mean, major vigilance, right? Great. Still did what we did at discos, or we did, but like just to say what you've just said about an 11-year-old having to be a business person or be an influencer is nuts to me.
Like for me, the most stressful app I have on my phone is WhatsApp. You know, because I'm in 27 parents.
Do you get overwhelmed when you? Yeah, but that's insane.
But like, you know, the training for the under 11s, under 12s, under 15s, the second class group, the collection for Mr. Murphy, that, you know, all those sorts of, and like it's bzz, bzz, and that's the stuff that stresses
but that
me
over
out.
100%. And when you really love people and you do love them and they're your people and they leave messages and you don't get back to them, do you find yourself feeling really shit? Like I know even today I've got things that I haven't gotten back to in about 2 weeks, because not because I don't love them, but I'm actually overstimulated and I don't have much to say to that.
Yeah, I heard a saying once, and it always stuck with me, which was just because I didn't remember didn't mean I didn't care.
No, like I love these. These aren't just assholes. Like I have loads of assholes in my life. Yeah. But these are my people, and they're in there just chatting about stuff or even looking out for me. And I actually find it hard even to engage with that sometimes. But that's not a level of doing the whole self-care step away boundary. It's actually just sometimes I'm just overstimulated.
But sometimes you're like, again, your brain has a finite space, right? So it's like a computer desktop. If you need to put stuff in, you need to push stuff out, you know, and put it, and they're all in different folders and all that sort of stuff. So the idea of being able to access things when you have the more things you have plugged in, the less likely you are to be able to hone in or remember or focus and all of those things. And like the idea of, like, we have this big thing about everyone's lacks resilience and everyone's this. And I don't think that at all. I think we are so overstimulated, like the expectation on us is so unrealistic that it's a very convenient narrative to say you lack resilience and you need to be tougher and you need to do this. Actually, no human brain can cope with the level of stuff that we're plugged into. Like, and again, the idea of, say for example, the tyranny of choice, having all those options and all that. Like when I grew up, like I used to watch Bosco or whatever. Yeah. Probably watched it till it was about 14 because it was the only thing that was on. Yeah, whereas now you go and you watch and you're trying to pick something and you go to bed without watching anything.
Oh my God, and then you go, everything's crap. And there's 7,000 options. If you have a dodgy box, I don't have one. If you've Netflix, but everything's crap, right? And you look at your partner, you go, oh, there's nothing on. Oh my God, back then there was 40 Coats, there was Bosco, there was Home and Away, there was Neighbours, there was a few things. There was Knots Landing, which was very sexual. There was Racy. Dynasty, like just, you're right, shite, Glenroe. But it was like, that was it. So shut up, sit there and suck it up.
But we're not meant to have that many options. We're not meant to be plugged into those sorts of things.
It's like the scrolling. It's so much.
And so when you have that level of, you're expected to function in a system that you drown in because it's far too much. It's understanding that it is understandable to struggle. You're not lacking resilience. Your demand is too high. Do you know what I mean? Like, and again, I would see that in workplaces as well. Like I would do a lot of workplace well-being and stuff like that. You go in and like, oh, we're going to have compulsory yoga at lunchtime, right? And people are going, oh my God, I've got this thing deadline due at 10 and I'm supposed to be
self-care at 1, but I'm not ready for it.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Like, we'll give you a fruit basket, but you need to stay all weekend. You know,
but actually you're mentally really fucked, and here you have to do yoga with people you hate.
So from the point of view of, we have to look at the demand we are placing on people rather than just trying to, like, it's that lovely thing about, you know, we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. And they're falling in because our society has gone so the expectations are
Okay,
so
so
much
Colman,
greater.
you need to tell me now in 2.8 seconds how to fix this all. So, a few things. Are we born the way we born? And don't I know I'm giving you a brain dead question for a genius, but are we born the way we're born intrinsically? Is there a part of we've the genetics. Everyone talks about environment, nature versus nurture, all of this stuff. And then you can have homes which is just no one can thrive. But are we kind of inherently born the way we are born? If I look at my kids, I'm like, they were like this. Do you feel that way?
There's things that are less movable than others, and I think temperament being one of those things. I think that's an undervalued thing. We don't talk about that enough. It's so influential about who you become, and I have two children exactly the same. They were parented exactly the same. How can they be so different? Well, they're different from the point of view of temperament, but I also think
temperament is
just that fiery, quiet, reactive,
the big traits,
those big sort of I have two children. They're all very different, but my eldest lad was a very thoughtful sort of kid, but he was that kind of, Dad, does a duck know he's a duck, when he was 2, and he's still like that, but he was like that. And then my daughter's much more chaotic, and she was like that when she was born, the second. So you work with that rather than against it.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
I love that. Yeah.
So, and I also think, again, genetics. There's so many things that are outside of our control from a parenting point of view that we can't influence. That's just the way they are. And I always would say, meet a child where they're at, not where you want them to be. Meet a child where they're at, not where you want them to be. Because you can't, if they miss a day in school, you can't just keep going. You need to go back and say, well, what did you miss? And how can we reset that a little bit? And then there's the evolution piece. And I do think that tribe, the village, the support, the people, the humanity, I think we've been on the planet for so long functioning in that way that to just suddenly divert into something completely different is not going to be without its problems. And I beg for a day when we can get back to connections and to have that, because I do think loneliness and disconnection is the biggest
loneliness
challenge.
Is my hardest thing. I don't struggle, I don't have issues with drink and drugs, but I would really struggle with loneliness. It would be my Achilles. I just can't do it. And so I always find my people, and whether it's doing something I hate, I'll just get on truck with that, right? But I know that we wanted to bring our kids up in this community-based thing, and we're very fortunate to have that, because I didn't have that and my husband didn't have that, and we thrive on that, right? It's not always perfect, but it just we're so trying to help them and bring them along and nurture them, and we love them so much, but there's so much we can't do for them. And I think, would one of your tips be just let go a little bit more of the apron strings?
Yeah, it's provide them with that surmountable stress and always allow them to function at the upper end of their ability, so that they're a little bit stretched to do things, but they're given enough freedom to be able to make mistakes that won't be catastrophic, but also giving them the support to do that. So it's not about, I will never see you disappointed. It's when you're disappointed, you can always count on me to be there, right? And the parenting message I always say is you've got this, right? So if you can imagine parenting being like on a roller coaster, right? And you're sitting there terrified and they're terrified, because that's much of the position. You don't say everything's going to be fine, because you don't know, right? But what you do say is, no matter what's up here, we're in this together and we'll get through it. Right. So we'll just huddle in and do it. So you're saying, I'm not guaranteeing you that this is going to be okay, but I'm guaranteeing you that if it isn't okay, I'm here with you. And your presence is your presence. You know what I mean? From the point of view of a child who knows you have their back, that you're in my corner and that you believe in me, not in a pressuring way, but that if this goes...
So if there's love, care, nurture, and there is deep, I got this, I've got you, I'm holding you thing, does a child still thrive in a blended family, for instance, where they know they're loved and held and supported, or in a single parent family, or in a, we worry so much about, oh my God, what if we don't have a perfect fucking marriage in line? What if we don't have can children thrive once they know that you're there for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the pillars of self-worth, self-value, and self-belief are those three things. And we confuse those sometimes. We think it's about confidence, which it's not. Confidence is how I project myself into the outside world. My self-belief and my self-value is my relationship with myself, right? So if you have a child who can come through lots of different complicated scenarios and blended families and single-parent families, with a sense of I'm okay and I got this and I'm worthy, and they have an authentic belief in their own ability and also an awareness of their own limitations. Do you know what I mean? That's the ingredients that will allow a child to get through any difficulty. A child with a perfect family and all that sort of stuff who doesn't have self-belief and self-value will struggle. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like the parent who says, I want my child to be more confident. Like I could do something in a very confident way. I can give this podcast, but there's no guarantee that when I get into my car, I'm not going to cry all the way home saying I was so bad and I was so... My self-evaluation is way more important than the objective truth.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my God, I love that.
So the most important relationship any of us will ever have in our lives is the one you have with yourself.
Come on, I know, and I'm really old and I'm still working on that, and it's really hard.
But we see ourselves through the eyes of the other. So people around you...
Do we? I really care how I feel about myself, and that's what I get most upset about. When I'm really hard on myself, or I've imposter, or I make the wrong choices knowing it was for me, right? I really get pissed with myself. I don't know if I care as much now.
But let's take, for example, you are struggling with something and you're finding it difficult, and somebody authentic, somebody who knows you, somebody who cares about you and you care about them, comes up and says, you're valuable to me and you've got this, and I really love this about you, and I want you to be okay about that, and I want to remind you that this is shit right now, but you got this, and you're the best sister I ever had, or your best daughter ever, or your class, and you're kind, and there's no way that doesn't influence how you come out of that experience. You know what I mean? Even though you can still be pissed off of your own performance, but there's something, and you need that connection of somebody going, you know, this is difficult, but remember this. Remember where you've come from. Remember what you were last year. Those kind of just those interactions and the quality of those relationships of someone who's got your back. Like it's phenomenal, the difference of an experience with somebody on your side versus on your own. Like the one thing that makes any sort of mental health problem more difficult is doing it in isolation. So by definition, doing it with somebody else or somebody else with you doing it helps. And that's not to say it's doing it with anybody. You know, sometimes you can be the loneliest person in the world in a relationship.
Oh,
you know,
100%.
So from the point of view, it really is about having those people in your life and their friends and their families and all that sort of stuff. And I just think that's the most protective thing because it keeps us on track. You know, don't let your thoughts run away with you. Well, who's going to stop? Well, that person who knows me well is going, no, Rebecca. You're not an imposter. You deserve to be there. You've done this. You've done that. We all need that.
Yeah,
you know,
we do need that.
And those
we badly need that.
Those connections allow us to recover, to heal, to negotiate. And I says my big concern is that we're losing those things in a time when our expectations are getting so much higher. Our relationships are getting looser.
They are.
And the idea of, you know, the pressure around I want to be in the perfect job and I want to have the perfect relationship and I have to have someone who's 6'2" and blue eyes and all that, and they have to be my life coach and they have to be my best friend and they have to be this, because previously the village, like there was people you went for drinks with.
Yeah, your husband was fucking annoying. There was someone else, the uncle or the neighbour.
You had all these other people to play.
We didn't
sport
rely on
with
the one thing.
And they did, but now when you've no village, that person
and your
becomes,
partner's a pain in the dick.
But they have everything. Like everything lands on this job. And
why are they not really sexy and funny and helping me through my mental health breakdown? Like it's fucking a lot.
And again, I suppose that's a measure of how our expectations have been skewed. And I think the answer to that is the village. It's the communication. It's the spreading that out. And so for parents who are watching this, it's about your child having relationships, giving them opportunities to make real relationships, to have those connections, to have those village. Because the more you spread out the demands on the village, the less intensely they're going to experience each one of them.
Finally, can I get you on? I don't want to let you go, and I feel like I might get you back for some stuff. You're doing incredible work in the area of talking to idiots like myself about social media, because we know and we like to preach about it, and it's so bad for our kids to have phones. It's really bad. And then we'll go and because their bestie Millie got one, or you and your partner aren't getting on, so I want to give them the better present at Christmas, or it's to track them during hockey practice only. It's only for that. And they will have a few apps. So we all fucking pretend, right, we're reading everything and we're consuming and phones are bad, and yet we're still giving a grenade into the hands of our little people. And we're like, here's the grenade, but I know you're not like those other kids. What are your actual hard rules on what the heck we should be doing with our kids with social media? Like, I would be blanket no, right? But I'll also be hated. And I do really want my kids to love me, but I would be blanket no until they're freaking past puberty, right? So what are we at here? Because I know you've great, strong feelings on it, and I have very strong feelings on it because I'm an addict and I'm old.
Yeah.
So I don't want my kid to be an addict.
Yeah, I don't feel, I don't have criticism for people who are in the position now, you know, in terms of if your kid's in 5th class and every kid in that class has Snapchat and they're the only kid without it, they will be socially disadvantaged.
So what?
That there's a cost to that. You can't say that. Like, say for example, if your kid comes to a school, every kid in that school is on this platform, or just imagine they go to the green and your kid isn't allowed to go to the green. They're going to miss out on the conversations that they're having, all that sort of stuff. So there's I feel for parents who are compelled, and no parent gives a child a phone without trepidation. They go, here you go, goodbye to your childhood. But there's such, like the numbers are not in our favor. 87% of 9 to 12-year-olds have smartphones. 27% of 6-year-olds have smartphones.
Did you give your kids phones?
No, from the point of view of, I have a very different setup in my house. From the point of view of, my kitchen is like an internet cafe from the 1990s. There's all PCs, everything. So I watch everything that they're going. My eldest son has a phone, but from the point of view of, I do that at the cost of having a kitchen that is in any way functional. But it's my way of allowing them to have that space.
Totally, research, resources, get on it. Yeah.
But the reality is collective action. We have to all come together and say we're not, like, if you're the only kid in 5th class without Snapchat, you will be disadvantaged. If you're the only kid in 5th class without,
so it's our fault.
With Snapchat,
yeah, so it's our fault.
No, but to finish that point, it's really important. If you're the only kid in 5th class with Snapchat, it's no use to you.
Yeah, no one's engaging with you.
The powers in the numbers.
If no one follows me on Instagram, I'm hardly going to stay on the fucking thing, am I?
But if you ask 16-year-olds, they will say, I wish I didn't get it so early.
100%. I've heard like this. You can say that. The best experts, like, come on, everyone is saying that. Like, none of them are like, yay, I'm glad I was addicted. Like, so it is our fault, and it's beholden to us. Like, what you're doing and the community stuff that's happening out my way, and like, we have to own this conversation, because one of us gives in, the rest of them follow. The mate says, well, I did get her one actually because her mate, like, it's.
There's a group of children we can spare, and they're the ones coming up next. I do.
They're my kids.
Yeah, and again, it's up to that collective action to get out ahead of this and say we are not going to, because it is the pressure of the numbers that creates the difficulty in the decision.
So there's going to be a shitty, fucked up generation.
I would call them the lost children. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I think there are. I mean, I think there's a lot of children in the last, who maybe over the last 4 or 5 years have lost an awful lot of their
COVID.
Yeah.
Shit time. Seen a lot, I'd say, within the home. Lost school time, lost that social outlet, right? And we call them snowflakes. Actually, no, they just really struggle with anxiety. It's not, they actually have mental health issues, and then they have the phones. So there is that, and then there's the ones that we can save. Oh God.
No, but I mean, I know that sounds very fatalistic. There's still things we can do to help those kids. The ones who are just...
Yeah, you'll always be employed.
But I think it's about, if we get them back into communities, give them... like, I would love to see the return of a youth club. I would love to see...
So all of this is going on at the moment. I feel like I'm in some frickin' the Waltons, but we're all in our area, and thank God, you really have to have a collective. We're all just like, keep them in something on a Sunday. You're correct. And when someone's like, oh no, we're just going to opt out of that. Like, you have to just all get together.
And it's really hard to solve loneliness on your own as well. Yeah. You need other people. So all of these problems are because of our lack of a village, and they require the village to fix them. Yeah. Does that make sense? This is not like coming into the therapy room. A lot of the difficulties they're not going to be fixed here. They're going to be fixed out there. Yeah. You know, you need to get friends, relationships. Like, the idea that these kids want to mix, but they don't know how to do it. They've missed out that step, or they don't know how to hang out and be in real life. We need to be able to give them those opportunities. The other thing is, when we don't allow teenagers or children to hang out because we think they're antisocial or they don't look good on our estate wall or sitting around, that sort of, there is that thing. No wonder they're migrating online. It's the only adult-free space that they have. When adults are heavily involved in everything that a child does, the competition goes up and the fun goes down. We need teenagers and young children need to have a space where they can be themselves without us.
But it's also a myth, you know, the groups of boys and girls who are scary. They're usually so super friendly. Like, it's very rare you'd find really abusive.
But they don't feel welcome.
Of course.
Do you know
and
what
we're
I
all
mean?
like, ugh.
And no wonder they're online, because if you're getting eye rolled at, or, you know, it's not comfortable in the real world. And like saying come off your phone to do what? Tidy your room. That's not gonna. We have to pitch for something better, you know. And I know my own son, if the option was 5 of his mates were out in the green and he could go outside and rather than playing his phone, he'd be out there. Do you know what I mean? We have to give them those opportunities, and I just don't know whether a lot of them know how to do that. They don't have the infrastructure, and COVID was a huge part of that, where they were the play date generation, and then they were in third and fourth year, and you can't ask your mum to ask John's mum to come up. You know what I mean? So how do you do it?
Yeah, how do you start that conversation?
That's a collective action thing. But the phone stuff, trying to get on top of this, it is. Everyone needs to be on the same page. We need to agree on it, and it will be power in numbers. The more people we can move on to this side, then you remove the pressure. You know, you say there was a group of 17-year-olds who asked about how much would you need to come off Instagram? What would you need money-wise? And they were like $7,000 or whatever. And they said if nobody was on Instagram, what would you need? Nothing. They're like, I would love that.
Yeah. There's your answer. That is your answer. And as an adult, I would love that. It's like allowing you to be a child again. Dr. Colman Noctor, like I honestly could have you here for 3 hours. You're doing incredible work in so many spaces. Like even an article you did yesterday really hit home with me from being a teenage girl in the past about the likability and how nearly that is now ruling, or we would like it to rule, as opposed to the coolest, most popular, the edgiest. How actually just being sound sometimes is our currency.
Could I just say one thing?
Yeah, go on.
And it's kind of just
yeah.
With so many things outside noise telling you this is what you should value, this is what you should need. The antidote to that is to try and really take a moment to say, what are my values? What do I want?
And you have to find those. Sometimes we don't know those.
Not going to be dictated by this and this and
yeah.
this, but actually taking control over my own choices and taking control over what is important to me. Like, what are my deal breakers? I always use this one example. Can I tell you this? There's a story of this philosopher, and he goes in and he has a jar and he fills it full of rocks, and he says to the class, is it full? And they said, yeah, it looks full to us. Then he gets pebbles and he sprinkles it between the rocks, and he says, now is it full? And they said, yeah, it looks full. And then he gets sand and he sprinkles it between the rocks and pebbles. He says, this is a representation of a fulfilled life. The rocks are the most important things to you: your health, your family, your close and intimate friendships. The pebbles are the secondary most important thing: your work, the ethos, that sort of stuff. And the sand is the cosmetic rubbish that's really not that important at all. In order to feel fulfilled, you must put the rock in first, then the pebble, and then sand. We live in a world that's selling us sand, and we're filling up the jar with sand, leaving no room for rocks and pebbles. Does that make sense? So how do you manage that? Well, you decide, and yours is going to be different to mine. These are my rocks. These are the things that I'm going to get upset about. They're deal breakers. They're important. This stuff, not so much, but it's worthy of some degree of stress. This stuff, not at all. If I'm able to prioritize and have proportion around what I get upset about, by definition, I won't sweat the small stuff. Does that make sense? So by saying, how do you sort out your own values? Decide what your rocks are, decide what your pebbles are, decide what your sand is, and remind yourself periodically of those things. Put your life in that way, and by default, you become resilient. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah, I really feel very emotional, but I also feel very like there's a lot of shit I got to sort out. And I think all of us. And you're honestly just brilliant in what you're doing. Keep doing it. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much.